Welcome to the second episode of the Trailside podcast. In this series, I'll be speaking with cyclists from all over the world that are part of the Kona Bikes Ambassador Programme. In this episode, I speak with Gretchen Leggit about growing up in a cycling family, travelling the world by bike, getting dropped by little kids on the trail, and becoming a professional artist. Hello, Gretchen. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you very much. So I kind of got an idea for this kind of podcast, which is a little bit different than what other people are doing. So the whole idea was I would not do loads of research about the person I'm talking to. So a lot of people will go in with loads of questions prepared. They'd know all about you, what you do. But what I thought might be a nice kind of twist on a normal interview would be to go in, like the only thing I know you is that you're a fellow Kona ambassador. So my hope would be just kind of meet people and create, a genuine kind of organic conversation between two people that are just passionate about cycling.
Right. I love it.
So it's something a little bit different. So I suppose if you could just start about telling me a little bit about yourself and how cycling is involved in your life.
Definitely. Well, I am here in Bellingham, Washington, so upper left USA. And I think cycling has evolved throughout my life. I've really had different phases of cycling. I grew up in a cycling family, so we were riding on the back of my parents' bikes in those hard plastic seats. My parents were bike commuters. They would ride us to school every morning. And then in the 90s, my mom got really into the early era of mountain biking. And so in 93, awesome. I got my first rock hopper. Yeah. And she was just this amazing inspiration. I recognize it now, just how badass she was. I remember in 1996 for our spring break, she took my brother and I to Moab to go mountain biking on Slick Rock. And this was really long before it was so popular. And that was really foundational and just a norm for us with riding. And then in college, I discovered, actually it was high school, I discovered the joy of bike commuting on a road bike. I got my first road bike and discovered the speed and efficiency of moving at high speeds. And I really associated that with a freedom in that era of my life. I also, in high school, had a pretty profound experience in which I had a fluke accident my senior year of high school in which I got crushed by 600 pounds of plywood. And my right foot was shattered. Yeah, I shattered my foot. I ended up in the intensive care unit for a week, and I sure couldn't walk for what ended up being over a year of being on crutches. And in that time, I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk, and I'm 18 years old. Like, this is when you should be free and mobile. And I discovered that my bike was my means of transportation and freedom. I could strap my crutches to my bike, and that allowed me to move around and to escape home. And so my bike became just this symbol of freedom and a means of me actually moving. So that was really profound. And I think that kind of planted a seed of obsession with two wheels. And after that, after graduating from college, I moved to Seattle, where I discovered the fine art of being a hipster. Definitely got my fixed gear on and just enjoyed urban cycling. I think there was a really, really captivating means of moving through a dense traffic logged city on a bike, and just this again, I can't use the word enough, freedom, your ability to just blast past cars who are just waiting idly at a light. And I really enjoyed that. And I found some great communities in doing that. That was also, I remember my first few months in Seattle, I was eating sushi with a friend, and we're sitting outside of a restaurant, and I see this just massive horde of people flying by us on bikes, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I put down my chopsticks and I run into the masses, and I'm like, what is this? And somebody yells, critical mass. And I'm like, ah, like, sign me up. So that was my discovery of critical mass. And I ended up telling my friend, pay for the sushi. And I hopped on my bike and joined the critical mass. And bada boom, there was that era. So yeah, that was my 20s. My 20s were spent urban riding. And through a club, like a little, we called ourselves a drinking club with a biking problem, because what does one do in the city in your 20s?
Yeah.
Go on very long bike adventures to dive bars out far away. No, but through that group, I started weekend warring. Weekend war. How do you say that as a verb? We became weekend warriors of bike tours. So we would just do 2 to 3 day little bike tour adventures, and that started planting seeds. And there, I transcended from a hipster to a long distance bike tour. And that evolution was absolutely magnificent because, again, I was captivated by this idea of traveling expansive distances fueled by just my legs and this beautifully designed machine. So I started bike touring, and that carried me around the world to 7 different continents.
Wow.
I I was a teacher, and so I had a month and a half every summer to just travel on 2 wheels. And my first tour was with some friends. We just went down the west coast of the United States, and then my second tour was a big 2,000-mile solo tour around British Columbia, just a big loop. So, yeah, and that just kind of set me off like, wow, I can do this myself. And it was really fun. And something that really captivated me was this idea of multi-sporting. So being able to carry different things on my bike, not just my hammock and my sleeping bag, but my climbing gear. And something with climbing, I think one of the joys of rock climbing and mountaineering is just being able to discover as you move, discovering new routes and whatnot. And so that was something that bike touring provided me, this opportunity to just travel through new lands and discover new routes, and meet new climbing partners along the way. So that was my next journey. I spent the next 10 years doing that. So I've had some
Awesome.
great adventures through that. Yeah. And then I would say, just to cap end my journey of bikes, then I moved to Bellingham, Washington 9 years ago. And I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but Bellingham, I would love to say, is the mountain bike capital of the US. We've just got some phenomenal, phenomenal trails here, and an absolutely amazing community of subdued legends. Just some really, really talented riders who are more humble than anyone I've met. And so just a really great training ground for learning that sport. And so that's kind of where my cycling attention is, and has been over the past 5 years, is mountain biking. So, and there you have it, the Gretchen Leggit evolution of cycling. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like the fact that as a teacher, you were able to kind of use your time off to just explore and use the bike to get around all over the world. Like what kind of places have you gone other than just kind of around the US and North America?
Yeah. I did a solo tour through Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand, which was, I
Wow.
must admit, one of the hardest trips of my life. I was there during the monsoon season and it was 100 degrees, or I'm sorry, 90 degrees with 100% humidity. So I experienced some temperatures and outside conditions that I just don't fare with. I mean, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not used to the sweltering heat. Um,
Hmm.
it was phenomenal, though, seeing such a drastically different culture, cultures that I know nothing of. So that was pretty mind blowing. And then one of my favorite tours outside of North America was a traverse of the French, Italian, and Swiss Alps. We embarked to traverse the Alps and the Dolomites with our climbing gear, with the objectives of climbing the top 10 ascents in those ranges. And so it was just absolutely beautiful, just feeling the topography on our wheels and with our bodies, just really creeping our way across these absolutely prolific mountain ranges. Yeah,
That
that was
sounds
a very
insane.
fun.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Bellingham, like I've definitely heard of it. I think a lot of people, anybody kind of involved in mountain biking, even if they're not from that side of the world, would have heard of Bellingham before, definitely. But like, is it mainly mountain biking in the communities there, or is there like a real great mix of kind of every style of cycling?
Mainly mountain biking. Yeah, we have hundreds and hundreds of trails within our city center. It's just this beautiful terrain where the mountains meet the ocean. And like literally the mountains just drop straight into the water, especially in the Chuckanut Range. And a lot of downhill. There's a huge variety of trail, some cross country, but just a lot of loamy downhill. It's similar to North Shore. We have a lot of rocks and roots, so it's
Yeah,
different than you will find elsewhere, but it's very characteristic of the Pacific Northwest riding.
yeah, that's kind of what it's like here now. We definitely don't have as large mountain ranges in Ireland as most other places, but if there's one thing we're not short of in Ireland is rain. So yeah, just lots of slippy rocks and slippy roots. The dusty trails are few and far between here in Ireland. So yeah, it's definitely a different style of riding from what you see in an awful lot of the videos when these guys are just shredding through these dry, dusty desert trails and over rock slabs and stuff. But um, so, like as you said, the you have the mountain bike trails like in the city centre. So, is the area where you live literally at the foot of the mountain?
Yeah, our home is 2 blocks from the trail, so it's a minute, 2 minute cycle to the trailheads. Yeah, so it's access is just phenomenal. Yeah, no matter where you are in Bellingham, you're not gonna drive more than 5 minutes to get to the trails.
Cool. And would they be mainly kind of government sanctioned or local council and government sanctioned trails, or would they be all kind of hand built by people and kind of less than legal trails, I suppose, if they know they're there but they just don't dig them out?
Yeah, so there's a mix. We have a variety of trails. From what I understand, Galbraith Mountain is the biggest area with trails. It's also the most popular area in town, and that was privately owned land. Some logging companies owned the land, and dirt bikers originally went in there and built illegal trails, and then the mountain bikers discovered them, as seems to be the story of a lot of great trails. And the logging companies in the mid 2000s ended up um, trying to shut down these trails and take it over and just clear cut the entire mountain because they had the right to. And
Hmm.
the community just came out in the tens of thousands and protested that.
Awesome.
And they ended up, yeah, the logging company ended up working with the mountain bike coalition and creating an agreement that worked for both parties, because this really is a staple for our community and our tourism, and they recognize it. So there's just this beautiful relationship in which we understand logging is an industry that must happen. I mean, the logging on our mountain bike trails is paying teachers' salaries. So, yeah, I think that there's just this mutual agreement and understanding. So, yeah, that's privately owned. We also have some state-owned parks that have public trails, and of course, there are amazing sneaker trails that weave throughout our forests. And there's always the battles of trying to keep those hush and, you know,
Yeah.
discovering more, building more. It's just the meandering evolution of trails. One thing that we are not short of are inspired trail builders. There's just a phenomenal amount of folks who are just constantly digging and building some epic trails. And one of our latest additions is the Blue Steel Jump Park. So we have not had big jump lines that are that accommodate a lot of people. So that's just been the latest addition over the past few years. So we're beginning to have some bigger competitions and some great freestyle riders coming out and playing in our parks.
Cool. Yeah, and then I suppose like when there's really great riders like that and trail builders and everything, like, and the community starts to build around it, then like the younger generation and kids getting into mountain biking, seeing how awesome this all is, and then hopefully they kind of stick with it. And yeah, like it can be really great to kind of see the community grow.
Yeah, I that is one of my favorite things about Bellingham right now is the Grom culture. I will go up to Galby and see bands of little girls. We're talking like between 5 to 8 year olds shredding. I know at least 3 8 year old girls who will send features that I don't dare go down. We have a lot of um, we have a lot of Groms who are getting into the pro circuit. There are two 14-year-old girls here who are, I see them going to be, they're going to be pro by the time they're 16. I watched one of them get close to, I don't know, she was right at the tail of Jill Kittner in a little competition that we had this summer. So in a pump track competition. So it was pretty impressive seeing a 14-year-old competing and getting pretty close to tying up with an Olympian. So
Yeah, wow.
I'm excited to see the future, stepping it up.
It's definitely great, and like, as I know, cycling in general and mountain biking, it definitely seems to be kind of a more male dominated sport. But like, I have two daughters and they both kind of enjoy cycling. Now the older one is kind of falling out of love with it as she hits her pre-teens, but the younger one is, she's just itching to get out on the bike most of the time. And my partner, she cycles as well. She's a gravel bike and a mountain bike, so it's great to see that there's a lot more kind of more women and children and girls and teenagers just kind of getting into the love of cycling. Because if there's one thing I personally find about it is I just love it. It's just the freedom of getting away and escaping the city, and just going on adventures, and it's very freeing.
Yeah, 100%. And some of the amazing events that are emerging in women's cycling out of Bellingham. I mean, Hannah Bergman she created Hang Time, which is getting women on these big jumps that for the past decades, these have only been male dominated lines. And, Hannah, Casey Brown, they're breaking the ice for women and creating these events that are really encouraging the gals to get out. And they're creating encouraging environments to get women trained and providing a space to do some of these lines in mountain biking that have just never been a place for women, so it seems. So Yeah, I'm really stoked to see what will emerge in the next 10 years. I think that
Mhm.
it's going to be a pretty equal competition ground for men and women.
I hope so, yeah, because I know I'm not exactly a fantastic cyclist, but there's definitely, even in the local circuit here, like some of the teenage girls that are kind of growing out of the youth and nearly, like they're still be in the underage categories, but they'd be faster than all the adults there, and a good chunk of the men bar the elites, like, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll get out of your way. Don't worry about me. You just go, like in these local kind of cross country races where there's only small numbers, but you know they just kind of throw everybody in together, and it's more about fun. But like there's a few of the regulars I'd see there, and I'd be like, yeah, no, you just go in front of me. I'll only hold you up. Don't worry about it. It's like, you know, it's great to see how fast some of they are, and like if you know if they stick with it, it could be pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And something that I'm noticing, and it was funny because we were just talking about this the other night, is that we're seeing these kids going into it with a good head about it instead of just going into it and being reckless as sometimes kids approaching these sports can be. I mean, they know their lines, they know their abilities, and they know when to back down
Yeah.
or when they've built themselves up, like be able to, hit a jump or a feature. So that's just what I've been observing, and it's really cool. Um, yeah, just watching them grow and adapt and inspire each other, and it definitely inspires me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'll get towed into a feature by a 7-year-old any day of the week.
Absolutely. So I suppose like I've learned all about how you got into cycling and kind of what kind of cycling community you're living around, and it all sounds pretty awesome. And how was it that you started to get involved in with Kona bikes?
So I got involved through Kona Bikes because it's the local bike company. Kona is based in Bellingham, and I have a lot of friends who work for them and have, introduced me to Kona and advocated for me to ride a Kona bike. And all I can say is I drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm glad I did it. Yeah, something that I love about, I mean, I fell in love with the process 153 the second that I got on it. It just blew my mind. The geometry just fits me perfectly. I find it to be a really inspiring mountain bike. It gives me wings. I feel comfortable going fast on it, and um, I think that it's light enough for me to just be able to go on big cross country days and not feel weighed down. But I also can, I can take it on a 50-mile cross country ride, and I can also take it to the Whistler Bike Park. So
Yeah.
stoked on that. With regards to Kona as a company, I love their ambassador program. They're focusing less on, this mentality of like, who's the strongest, who's the gnarliest bikers, and instead they're focusing more on just a diverse, creative group of riders, because
Yeah.
that's what the bike community is. Not very few people are extremely insane, talented riders. So I
Hmm.
think that the Kona program really um, reflects more of the real human,
Yeah.
the real bike community. So I think that that's really rad, and getting to meet like-minded people who just have an obsession with bikes like you.
Yeah, definitely. Like I know when I was younger, I used to destroy my bikes. Like you know, when I was a young teenager, like I just kind of had a cheap mountain bike. Nothing special. Like I wouldn't even. It's really just for to give a kid a bike. It wasn't really built to be taken off road. And like living in the city, I didn't have any trails near me, so I used to go cycling around the university campus, and I would destroy my bike going up and down stairs and hills and things like that. And then I kind of,
Yeah.
as I hit my late teens and started working and everything, kind of fell out of it. But then I just seem to have refound the love of cycling, kind of in my mid 20s, and got into just made friends with the local bike shop and ended up working in the bike shop. And they were Kona sellers, and then I had Kona bikes. I have too many bikes, I think, if you even can have too many bikes. And then one day I decided, oh yeah, they're always looking for ambassadors. So I said, I might as well fill out the form. What's there to lose? And yeah, there we are now. And I have a pretty sweet Kona Hey Hey CRDL out of it, like that I never would have been
Oh,
able to afford or get my hands on otherwise without the ambassador program and working through a bike shop. So that's pretty sweet, and I'm always grateful for that. And as you said, I think the great thing that Kona
yeah.
do is they really, it's not just about who can do the biggest jumps or who can go the fastest down the hill or who can do this or who can do that. It's more kind of, how do you use cycling as an expression of yourself? And me, like I go to some of the races, but it's more about kind of fun for me and getting a day out on the bike. But really, cycling to me is just my happy place. It's where I go to kind of escape the real life and the stresses of being an adult, and I get to kind of go back to being a little kid.
100%. I totally agree with that. Which actually leads me to the final phase, my current phase of biking, which I did not press upon, which is the e-bike commuter. I just
Hmm.
got a Kona Do E, which, if you were to ask me 10 years ago, Gretchen, could you imagine yourself riding an e commuter? I would have laughed in your face and told you never. But I have to commute long distances sometimes up and over big hills, and I'm a professional mural artist now. So I'll have projects 20 miles away, and just need to travel vast areas in small amounts of time. And man, that e-bike is so inspiring. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. And just what you said, like it's the happy place, it makes you just get your mind off of work and get your mind off of the seriousness of being an adult. So that's definitely something that I really value in this idea of everyday commuting on bike versus cars. And the e-bike makes it so much more accessible. No matter if it's rainy or dark outside, because it has great lights. No matter if there's a huge hill and you're, trying not to show up sweaty to an event, like
Hmm.
it makes it accessible and easy. So that's my latest addition. That's my latest addiction to biking is my e-bike. So I highly recommend getting on a Do E if you get a chance.
I haven't, like, I've tried electric bikes a few times, but I've never had any proper kind of real long cycles other than just testings and stuff, and they're great fun, and it's awful. It's very hard to resist the urge to just stick it into the highest mode and just go and just take off sometimes. Um, so you were saying that you're a professional mural artist. Now, I've seen some of your work, but that's really just kind of through the network of social media posts that get shared around with the kind of other Kona ambassadors. And could you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, so you're pretty much a professional artist, really.
Yeah, yeah. I left teaching 5 years ago and have just dived into the career of being a fine artist, which has, it was really intimidating at first. I mean, as one can imagine, quitting your day job with all of the benefits and trying to be a freelancer in
Hmm.
a domain that you know nothing, you don't have any security. But murals were a really great anchor for that because they are very large jobs. And I 3 murals into my career, I literally had just done 2 as a hobby. My 3rd mural ended up being the largest mural in the state of Washington.
Wow.
It was the length of 2 football fields by 60 feet tall. So it was 22,700 square feet. Um, so absolutely massive.
Yeah.
And after painting that, it was just such a massive undertaking and big impression piece that really had a positive impact in the community. I got a lot of recognition for that, and it piqued the interest of other business owners who were maybe considering having a mural done or who didn't even realize that they needed a mural. But when they saw the positive impact of that piece, I started getting more work. So that's just been an exciting um, so that gave me the confidence to really put all of my eggs into that basket and just sharpen my tool set, and yeah, I've haven't looked back to teaching since I started this. I think one of the things that really draws me to being a muralist is simply the opportunity to create positive impact in a community.
Yeah,
Taking a forgotten or an abandoned wall or a neglected space, adding a fresh coat of paint, and instead of just improving it, you're making magic happen. And it really has a visceral impact on the people around. The words of gratitude that I get every single time I put up a mural. I have grizzled construction workers telling me this mural has changed their day. It makes them happier coming to work every
that's
day.
awesome.
That's high. That's important. Yeah. So it's just been a really cool development. Never saw it coming. Never had aspirations to be a mural artist, but heck, I will take it as it comes. So it's pretty exciting.
So when you get hired to do something that large as part of like a community project, would you have everything planned out to the last little detail as you start, or would you have like a rough idea and a sketch, and then as you go kind of change and adapt? Or how well planned would you have something for a project that's that massive?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So murals of that scale, it's like building a house. You have to have a good plan. You have to have your materials ordered in advance, or else you're just going to flounder. I
A
think
lot of paint.
smaller walls, you can definitely yeah, you can get away with freestyling. It's just like a small wall, you have that flexibility. But when we're moving into the side of a building, you have to have your machinery ordered, you have to have a map, you have to have your plan. Those take $1,000 worth of paint. So you have to have your palette completely planned out. And yeah, it's really a puzzle.
Sounds like quite an undertaking to do something that big. That's the length of 2 football fields. Like that seems pretty insane. But yeah, it's great that it worked out so well, and that you got such a positive response, and everybody was so happy with it. It sounds like a quite a daunting project to take on, but then at the end of it, when you see all the hard work pays off, and as you said, it kind of makes their day when they look at something like that and like, wow, this kind of really brightens up the area, or like it's just an interesting thing to look at, and it just makes people happy. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a really, really amazing gift to have these opportunities to put them up. And I mean, we only have one life to live. We might as well leave the world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And if we can brighten it up with some fresh coats of paint every now and then, why not?
Absolutely. I did get to do a piece on the Kona Bike Shop here in Bellingham. It was a dream piece of mine. Sometimes clients tell me what they want to see on their walls, but the Kona Bike Shop mural, I had just been dreaming of this image for a long time. And Jake and Dan, the owners, were really stoked for me to allow me this wall to paint, or to provide me this wall to paint. So it was just this massive piece of just the loamy North Shore trails with ladders and rock rolls and swoopty lines, very energetic, tall cedar forests, Sasquatch running through the forest, and centered in the middle of this piece is an astronaut busting out a beautiful tail whip. There was just this image that I've just been thinking of for a long time of the astronaut with the tail whip. So that really scratched an itch for me. So you'll have to check it out. Kona's been putting it on some of their merch. So I'm pretty stoked to have that.
Yeah, I think I have the astronaut T-shirt. I think. All right, I didn't realize that was one of your designs.
Yeah, that was one of my dreams. So
That's
there
cool.
we have it. Yeah, thank you. Well, do you have any plans to come out to Bellingham anytime?
Oh, I wish. I would love to get over there sometime. I was lucky enough that I did get to travel with Kona outside of Ireland to some of the dealer launches. Pre-COVID happened, so like I got to go to Austria one year and I got to go to France the next year, and the difference between mountain biking here in our tiny little woods and mainly flat and just wet, and then loading my bike up onto a ski lift and going up the side of a mountain to go, descend 1,000 meters back down again. It's just mind blowing to me. Like, whereas here, like, you'd get a couple of 100 meters worth of climbing done in a day cycling. So, but I definitely would like to have the mix of the kind of wet, rocky routes that I'm used to here with like the huge mountains that you have there. So it'd definitely be quite the experience if I ever got the chance to get over that side of the world.
Well, you will definitely have a community to ride with if you make it.
I hope so. I suppose we can leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that sounds, that's great. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for giving me your time and coming on to have a chat with me.
Well, thank you so much for considering me for this. And have a wonderful night.
Okay, have a nice week. Bye.